Good morning. Welcome to Around the Campfire. We are here today with Alex Boston and Ed Kozlowski. These are our two of our main leaders inside the digital marketing department here at Northwoods, and we are a full-service digital agency. And we are here today to talk about how to leverage AI inside of digital marketing. And we're going to use a little bit of a prop cheat just a little bit today. Our excellent marketing team has put together a guide to leveraging AI in your digital marketing and advertising. And I think it's just a great outline. So we're going to kind of use this as a prop today to talk about it. We're going to put that link to this document right up here on the screen and be able to click over there to go through it. And on your own, after we're done talking about it, or if you want to go to it right now, hit pause and go bring this up and you can follow along as we're going through here. But we're going to talk about 5 different strategies today for how to leverage AI. One of the first that comes up all the time is, and I'll throw this to Alex first because I know you have some opinions on this, is SEO going away? And now is AI going to be the solution to everything? I have read things that 95% of the people are not using SEO anymore and Google is dead. Is there any truth to any of this?
Short answer, no. I think this is the 15th time I've been in SEO for a little over a decade, and I think this is the 15th time I've heard some sort of death knell for Google and SEO, and everyone's starting to rally the cries that it was over and you don't need to worry about it anymore, and you're free from having to mess with Google algorithm updates and anything like that, which, while I get the wishful thinking to a certain element there, it's still the most powerful tool we have to reach organic traffic by a long margin at this point. AI is definitely growing in its impact, but it's nowhere close to dethroning Google for overall search share. So we still have to really consider SEO.
So there's a fair amount of misinformation and FUD being thrown about over there. And you're here to say that at the moment, like you said, it's growing, but has not yet or will ever take over SEO completely from the Google, the Bings of the world, Yahoos. Probably they're going to integrate more SEO into their own experience, but people aren't going to ChatGPT as a sole source of searching for everything. Some people are, but most people are not.
Yeah, no. In fact, we've seen a lot of studies that suggest that people start off in user journeys in ChatGPT and then even navigate out of it once they've refined their understanding and even come back to Google with that later search. So it's very much something that helps push people down the funnel and helps people kind of do their research and understand things a bit better with complicated queries that they don't want to go to Google with.
Yeah.
So it definitely helps people develop their understanding, but it's not taking away either the interaction with Google yet in any substantial way, or the need to eventually end up on a website to finally engage and buy something or engage with a service.
Right.
So yeah, it's pushing people further down the funnel, but all that's changing is kind of where those interactions are happening, not really what we're doing to attract them and try and get the attention of those tools, or what needs to happen to drive people to the right places in your site. Help them engage with you. So none of that is changing, really.
Which brings us to the
one thing I would add on to what Alex is saying is there's studies that we read. They're provided by SparkToro and Datos that show what people are using. Google's still over 90% of overall search. AI is under 1%. It's still behind Bing. It's made a little progress in Q2 of 2025, but it's still well behind it. The other point to look at is when you're doing GEO or search everywhere optimization, whatever you want to call it, you need to rank on Google for these LLM tools to actually find you. So fundamentally, you still need to do traditional SEO for that very reason.
So if you want to show up in the LLMs, and be relevant to the content that they're providing, you need to have good search engine rankings in general, whether those are visible in the SERP to the search results page that comes up, or just being visible to the LLM.
Correct. Yeah.
Which brings us to a new term that has been coined this year, if I'm not mistaken, GEO, generative engine optimization. Is that right?
Yep. Correct.
And that is different from SEO in the sense that you're showing up for LLMs, being visible. Okay.
Yeah. And it's a bit, I think there was kind of this thing at the start that it was going to replace SEO as a wholly replacement discipline.
Yeah.
That this was what we were going to be focused on now. I think now we're starting to understand that it's more akin to like when you focus on local search in particular in a strategy. Like you build all the tactics that you're doing to try and reach local search specifically. When you're focused in that way on a particular mode of search, GEO is a lot like that. It's like we're going to optimize around LLMs specifically to try and be found there because we think that's a good part of our strategy.
Yeah.
It's not the whole thing. It's not the whole discipline. You still need to do the search engine work too.
And I think the key part of what this white paper that we put up, again, the link is available to you. This is available on our public website, is that GEO is an addition that you still have to do all of it. The best practices for SEO are going to, in that, what is different? Is there anything that we're doing different here in GEO versus SEO to optimize a page?
Yeah, so GEO is way more back-end and tech focused than, your on-page content certainly matters, but LLMs aren't regularly crawling your on-page content in the way that Google is. They're not re-indexing. They're not constantly trying to keep tabs with something fresh. So if you change your content frequently, those updates may not be reflected even in LLM tools because they're not constantly coming back to you and recrawling. So content isn't necessarily the best way to reach them. It's one way.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is structuring your pages and making sure that the technical data is in place to help them understand when they crawl the site once, what is on the page and what kind of content they can expect.
And data. What are some examples of that?
Yeah. So data is really what I mean by this. So this is about adding a little backend snippet onto a page that helps at the kind of header element of a page to help people understand, or at least tools understand, what the content of the page is. So this is less for a user-facing thing. It's not something that a user is going to encounter, but more any indexing tool, whether it's an LLM or a search engine, to help them understand the content. And there's a lot of different modes of doing this, a lot of different types of structured data markup, but there's schema.org frameworks, which is a particular schema framework that you can use. All of this is crawlable by search and extractable by LLM tools. So this is a really important point to make sure it's in a good spot. The other thing is that there's a lot of different ones that are supported by Google, but these also translate into, differentiating the type of content you're producing for LLMs as well. So that can help them understand and contextualize the content that they're scanning. So these are just some examples of things that you can use structured data to indicate. This is a recipe. So that's something that an LLM can pull out and understand that way immediately.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different ways to use structured data and, making sure that you're getting the most out of it and successfully categorizing your content. It's a big deal in LLM optimization.
By putting this structured data on the page in schema or some other indicators, and there's, as you mentioned, there's a number of different ways to do this. You're telling the LLM what is on this page. Does it come back and index it more often here, or is this more static? Eventually it had to have indexed it initially. It had to have crawled through your site. Do you have any data on how often they're coming back and doing that again? Or
it really varies by tool. And then they have kind of a sort of invisible bandwidth cap, typically, where they're not going to crawl you they're only going to crawl you X number of times because they don't want to use their server bandwidth, absorbing more data.
Yeah.
So again, not like Google's algorithm where it's about constant re-indexing and constant updating and wanting to understand the freshest content available to users.
Yeah.
It's often just about all they want is the topics. All they want is to pull in the information from your site.
Yeah. And they're training on the model, they're learning general stuff. I do get a sense that a couple of them, perhaps Perplexity, comes out in real time when you do a query. It says, hey, I know that Northwoods stuff about digital marketing. And so now I'm going to go and take one more look over there in real time. At least on the screen when the LLM's running, it seems to go out. I'm checking this website, and makes a big list of all the website it's going and like recalling in real time. Is there any that's my suspicion. Do you have any data to refute that or support that?
I don't know if we have data to support that. I know as Alex and I have gone through things, you do need to be skeptical if they're actually recrawling a website. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. And we actually did like a coursework with some AI researchers and we went over things. And one of the things we did was we went in separate groups and two of the groups asked it to crawl a website and pull information back. Both times it says it did. One time it clearly did not. One time it appeared it actually did based on the information it pulled off. So I would say be skeptical that it's actually going back to the website outside of the last time it went for the reason Alex said. They don't want to use their tokens and things like that. Not tokens. They don't want it to go back and use their bandwidth up to cost them money.
It's an interesting tangent because then it would suggest that static content that's well put together and very thoughtful would have an edge over blog content, which is more timely and coming up more often. Is that true?
That is kind of what we're seeing, at least in terms of priorities right now. It does seem like, as far as what ranks and what they're leading people to, a lot of the rankings are shifting away from blog content towards static content. That said, the blog content is still important. It still helps you generate an understanding with search engines or with LLM of what topics you cover and what you're an authority in. And then if you just carefully and strategically link back to those static pages that you want to be seen for those things, that's really important and helps establish that you are an authority and that you know what you're talking about and you can write on this with knowledge.
And
go ahead, Ed.
One thing I'll add, what I've seen with the blogs, to Alex's point, we're seeing rankings go down. They're not a bad strategy by any means. I've seen that SERP features, which are things like AI overview, image packs, knowledge panels, things like that. Blogs oftentimes, it's industry specific, but blogs oftentimes fill those, especially when they're informational ones, asking a question to Google and things like that.
Yeah, and Ed makes a great point there on industry specific, because for certain industries, like those AI overviews and SERP features really grab blog articles heavily.
Yeah.
Healthcare in particular, I know we've seen there's something like a massive number of traffic and the likelihood of your showing up for an AI overview in certain industries is very high. And then as soon as you get into something that's more visual, or really, really either branded or localized, then you start to see AI overviews less. So anything that's an industry specific, kind of broad industry specific query that you have, you're very likely to see an AI overview, and then blogs are really favorable for those.
Great. Okay. Segueing on to the next section over here, SEO. And so we've made the point that SEO and GEO work together, and that as we optimize in the center, that when you're optimizing for one, you're really optimizing for the other, that there's a very large overlap. And that's it. Maybe even not indicative of this. Create quality content, leverage your keywords, ensure that you're measuring it and you're optimizing your pages with the H1s, H2s, H3. All this stuff is in the white paper. You can read it at your leisure. And let's go to point number 2, segueing. Partner with AI on high quality content creation. A little bit of controversy here because people, from professors to school teachers to marketers to people that don't have enough time and have to take their kids to soccer practice, don't have enough time to write good quality content anymore. And so they go to the AI, even submit stuff to courts of law with references in them. This is happening at all levels of government at the moment. And so we have AI generated content. So how do we avoid that? How do you partner with AI to do high quality content?
I think it's about how you position AI within your work process. So especially when it comes to content generation, thinking of it like an outlining or a first draft generator, basically, I think is really the position that it holds within the process. It is not the thing that you're going to publish, whatever it turns out. It has to be the thing that saves you a little bit of time, maybe in sitting down and just getting words on a page. And then you can go in and shape it beyond that. So it does save you time. It does still make things more efficient because you're not generating, a whole draft from scratch originally, but it will still take some substantial time and human investment to go back and keyword optimize it, because it doesn't really know SEO best practices and how to apply them. So, it won't know your keyword strategy. It won't know how to integrate the keywords that you're looking to integrate, or the topics you're looking to focus on necessarily. So you're going to need an editorial touch, a human editorial touch, but it's still valuable to save you a little bit of time at the front end.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, if you're just putting a lot of AI slop out there, a lot of content just generated by AI, people are getting better and better at recognizing this over time, because now we're being exposed to it so much that's just going to have an impact, not only in like GEO, but SEO. Like if people are going to your website and they don't stay on because the content's poor, not answering really what they need, Google's going to recognize that over time and you're going to hurt your rankings.
Yeah. There's a number of tells I've become aware of for engine generated content. Probably the biggest tell is you're reading the content and it just seems generic, high level, non-specific. It lacks a human touch, full of platitudes, very, very well crafted sentences that when you're done reading it, you have a subconscious sense that it didn't really say anything. Number 2 is all those bullets that you see that are little fancy icons as a very big tell for AI generated content. I don't know why people don't strip those out. Number 3 is the excessive use of M dash, that long dash in between dangling phrases and dependent phrases, independent phrases. put inside your sentence structure. That's a big tell. I'm looking at this content right now on the screen over here, and I don't see any M dashes. So well done, guys. I can tell that this was not drafted with AI. But you said, so the best practices are use it as a first draft. I use it to generate ideas, good stuff. I want to challenge just an inch on the SEO strategy. Could you not prompt in your prompt to put an emphasis on the keywords? If you fed it its keyword strategy as part of the prompt, would that be helpful?
I have experimented with this a lot. The problem is not necessarily that it understands what you're asking for when you say, hey, put these keywords in. The problem is it doesn't understand where to put them necessarily. And it can study SEO best practices, but what it will do instead is just jam it full of these key phrases at awkward intervals and kind of do the way SEO writing used to be like 10 years ago, where it was just about keyword density and just jamming in the key phrase wherever you needed it to be. As opposed to then it almost like it laser focuses on your keyword as opposed to thinking about the sort of broader topics that might be useful in connection to that, which is really the value of AI. AI is a model that can understand the intricate connection between topics in a way that other models can't. So freeing it up to just kind of come up with, here are the other topics on this that I would suggest looking into, help you benefit from some of the vector data that tells it what might be interesting here or relevant to users on this. So I think it just doesn't quite get it right and make it readable, and you end up doing more editing than you would if you just did it yourself later.
Vector data, you dropped that in there. Vector data. Some of our users just got lost on vector data. So give me a minute on vector data.
So vector data is basically what differentiates the way that LLMs understand data from something that used to be the way we understood data. We used to understand it just in sequential lines of code and data. Now they can look at, let's say, like a concept or a word and use different kinds of data mapping to understand the complex relationships between that concept, the topic you're talking about, and all of these other topics that are surrounded by it.
They're related.
And so, they use these points of data, and it can be anything that they can draw in to the tool and consider to create a massive map of all of the content on your site or just wherever they're crawling. And use that to more contextually understand your content. And that's where we look like, when we're generating content with LLMs, it can look like it's a genuine human intelligence sometimes because it's so contextual and it has a greater semantic understanding than other tools have in the past of how content is organized and how topics are related to one another, which is why it seems like it can understand the nuances of things, but it's really just a very advanced data model. And those vector data points are how it uses that and then how it leverages that to create content.
I give the example of you write content about cars. A vector off of cars is automobile. Another vector is vehicle is a broader category. Transportation is a vector off of that. And so if somebody's looking for transportation information, your article about cars would show up even though the word car doesn't appear in whatever you've written about.
Correct. And I think a good way to for people to mentally visualize it is you put in the word cars and it, from a 360 perspective, associates different words. And the closer the word is to it, the more associated it is. The farther away, the less associated. If you look up the models, which you can Google them, you can see them online, and it actually rotates and gives you these associations. It's very interesting to look at.
All right. Number 2 point, with a high quality content creation. Any LLMs better at content creation than others? Any recommendations? Alex, you play with a lot of them.
I like content creation tools within existing SEO tools. So if you have something like SEMrush, their tool actually does have some understanding of SEO best practices, and it has been trained in that. So it can apply those as a first pass. And it also has access to search data is the advantage. It has access to all of SEMrush's traffic data and volume data, which ChatGPT won't. So it can bring that in and help you find even related keywords based on those vector data points again. So it can kind of synthesize this process all in one place. So it speeds things up a little bit more. So what you get is closer to a typical blog article.
Inside the tools, inside of the SEO tools. So they'll be already paying a price for the SEO tool. You have a subscription. We have a subscription to a bunch of them. Being able to use those inside there. Ed, anything to add?
I'd add in, well, if you're using an LLM for it, Claude tends to write a little better than like ChatGPT. It also can come down to your prompting. The other thing I'd say is if you want high quality content, to what Alex said at the very beginning, you need to put a lot of human touch because it's probably going to hallucinate some content and there's going to be that false information that we talked about.
Yeah.
Pretty much because of those associations it make, and it'll get off topic on things.
I was reading an article yesterday somewhere. I do not remember the topic. And right in the middle of the sentence was a word that just made absolutely no sense why that word was in the middle of the sentence. It was an adjective. And I forget what it was. But as I was reading, I stopped and I thought, why are they using that adjective here? And then I read it again and I thought, well, maybe I'm just dumb and I don't understand why this would be a good contextual. And then it occurred to me, no, an LLM wrote this and it just hallucinated a word. It was a real word, but it didn't fit contextually into what they were talking about. And I went through 5 times trying to think of an angle why that word would fit in there and I could not. So, but its vector data went askew and it hallucinated a word into the middle of my sentence that threw me off. And that was a big tell that the LLM was working over there. All right. Strategy number 2, work with a high quality content creator. Collaborate with it. First drafts. And then we talk about, you can read some of this. Viewers can read some everything, but fact checking is really, really essential, especially if you're doing anything with authority. So I know that we have used AI to help assist with blog writing on some more technical topics. And that's really super important to have somebody else proofread it and make sure it makes sense. Have the engineers, the technical people, make sure that it makes sense. All right. Leverage AI-driven digital advertising to target micro moments. So this is a concept you've been big on, Ed. Like, give us us understand what this means, targeting micro moments.
Yeah. So oftentimes, if we take a quick step back with paid ads, right, we want to target conversions, not just impressions and clicks, right? There's a time for branding and things like that. And a micro moment is essentially a moment when someone is likely to take the action you want them to take on your website. So an example of this would be you went rock climbing, you did it the first time, and now you really want to buy rock climbing gear and you're in your car now searching rock climbing gear, right? We'll say rock climbing shoes. If Google can associate that you were just at a gym, rock climbing likely because you were there and now you're searching this after, that might be a high likely moment that you're going to purchase. And we want to target that exact moment. And what's interesting about them is they tend to be a bit more expensive because people are likely to convert. In this e-commerce example, right? The person wants to know information about it and they want to make that purchase. So we're targeting it. So there's ways we do that. One is we need to have good and accurate audience data and or keyword targeting, right? So if you're on Google, you want to make sure you're utilizing the right information, getting it the right people. The other part is giving it the bandwidth to go out and find these moments where you may not think of them, and think of the vector embeddings, how it makes associations that maybe we don't. That's where broad match keywords tend to work really, really well over time. And the other part of this is using bid strategies that focus on conversions and not manual CPC adjustments on a daily basis. It lets it go out and learn when people are likely to convert, and then having enough budget to go out and do it, right? So if you only have, let's say, $10 a day at your budget, you might miss your micro moment because it's bidding and learning things, but that was from 8 a.m. to noon, and then you're not, you have no bids out there after noon. So it's giving it the ability, we kind of give it the liquidity to go out and learn and develop, and then have the ability to find these moments for you. And then over time, you're tweaking your ad language, you're tweaking the search terms and keywords based on what's not working and pushing it into a better direction.
In your rock climbing example, do you need to know that you're targeting a micro moment, or is the AI learning this for you and budget? You're setting up the parameters to make this happen, or
we're setting up the parameters to guide it to find these and test over time to find these, versus us knowing exactly. Because I can't know that Alex is making the search at 9 p.m. exactly because he's outside the gym. That's where the automated bid strategies come in. They can learn that. Interesting note, when you have a budget on Google, let's say $100 a day, roughly 20% of that is always going to go towards learning new things. And then 80% is going to go towards targeting likely conversions. And one thing I always have to talk through with the clients is that they always want cheaper and cheaper clicks, but the moments that people are going to convert are expensive because everyone wants to target them. So actually we look at cost per conversion or cost per acquisition, whatever you prefer to say, as a more important metric than cost per click, because we want quality, not just, quantity.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anything to add to that, Alex?
I would just say the other nice thing about cost per acquisition, it allows us to really easily look at return on investment and drill down to, what do you make whenever someone buys something or converts? And then let's look at how much we spent, and we can understand really clearly where the value is there.
Correct. And that can be difficult to get at a lot of times with some clients because they just have a lot of information coming in, and it's hard to sometimes associate this actual lead came from Google or Google Ads or Google Organic or social. That's things we work on in the background is kind of vet that out so we can attribute exactly, hey, these quality leads came from Google Ads. They came from organic. They came from AI. In Google Ad example, we'd actually push those leads back into the system to focus on more of them in the future.
So this underscores the importance of reviewing your result, paying attention to it, why the monthly review of what have we learned, what the data is, is there anything that snuck into a micro moment that we didn't want? And be able to eliminate and be able to tune up and put more emphasis, increase a bid strategy. So there's a lot of fine tuning that goes on to making this work.
Yeah, there's a lot. I just met with a client the other day and, early on, we weren't seeing a lot of quality conversions and we're starting to see them ramp up. So each month we talk about that, and sometimes more than once a month. And we start to refine our campaigns, not just in the back end, but just like what we're targeting, as well as how we're measuring it on a site to get it more and more accurate. And the number of qualities going up and the spam, we'll say, is going down.
Yep. All righty. Let's get into some, if you're trying to select a digital agency and for whatever reason you didn't want to pick Northwoods, what are some things that you would want to ask your digital advertising agency? Is our budget adequate? Seems like a very question. Why is it important for budget?
That's an important question because, as we kind of talked about, if you're running out of budget too early in the day, you might not be getting to the actual conversions. It's also, you want to understand that you get an honest answer from someone. So when I get a new client who's never done Google Ads before, they're like, what budget do I need to spend per month? And we can back into a educated guess based on the research we do. And we have like keyword velocity and things like that. But it's really an educated guess. We don't have a hard set, like this is how you get to it. People will give you that. But what you need to achieve is 10 to 15 quality conversions per month. And at that point, we can start to optimize. So that I kind of give them that answer there. And that's what you kind of want to look for. We want to make an educated guess. We might need to increase it if we need more results, or we could decrease it if we're just spending a lot and not getting things.
Yeah. And we're honest. I know that we are, but saying, hey, this isn't working. Here's what in our best guess, best practices. These are a number of additional experiments we could run, trials. We have a theory, and let's give them a shot and put a reasonable budget against it. Yeah, I know the budget question. Nobody wants to spend a lot, but you want to be able to get some sort of return. And if you're getting return on, an investment of $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, and you're getting $20,000 return, in theory, it pays for itself. It's money. Yeah. How are you leveraging AI? Being able to ask them, are they using this? They should be able to, I assume, rattle off or give you some examples of places and tools they're using and how they're accelerating. I don't think AI is I'll make a bold statement here. I don't think AI is going to replace what you guys do soon. So I think we got a number of years at least going forward before, we don't need people anymore. But we can use it as a productivity enhancer. I liken it to the fact that we've been using hand tools to build our house for a long time. And now we have all these power tools that can just help us go way faster, be more efficient. But you still have to know how to build a house.
Correct.
You still,
And there's a couple things with that. One, like when you fly on a plane, right? It's like 95, 98% autopilot, but you still want that pilot there.
Yeah.
And two, the other thing is, if we went to a thing where it's all AI running everything, it's going to optimize that content. But then in theory, everything's going to optimize the same and become really, really, I'll say cliche or like you're going to start hitting that. People are going to want the human touch to come out where there's unique things going in this out there in terms of advertising and messaging. I
think then all the AI firms would hire battle bots and they would attack each other with AI driven robots. That's my but dystopian future. That's one vision. Anyways. How are your conversions set up? Always very, very important for AI helping with conversions.
Yeah. So this is more of understanding that you have accurate conversion set up, because if you're pointing the AI,
What's a conversion? Let's say just real quick. Conversion.
Conversion is unique to your industry or your website. So in some instances, it might be purchasing a product. In another instance, it might be submitting a form for like a product on your website, not an e-commerce product, but let's say you're a manufacturer and you have a long sales cycle and you need to talk out custom
request
things.
for quotes.
Yeah, requests for quotes, things like that.
Downloading a white paper might be a conversion.
Correct. Yeah, that's more, we call those kind of micro conversions at times. But you want to understand what your conversions are and are they set up accurately? And that actually leads us to their next question, which is, are you experts in Google Tag Manager? And the reason that's important is your agency needs to be able to accurately set up your conversions. So it might not have to be exactly the person doing the ads, but they need to work with someone who can set it up accurate so that you're feeding it the right information. Because if you're feeding it bad information, you're going to get bad results.
And if you're not measuring, you have no idea if it's working or not. All you have is best guesses. Are you accounting for evolving cooking policies and content protection policies, content management policies? This is a little creeping shadow of the Black Death sneaking in from the back room here. All of these new government mandated policies for privacy, et cetera, or et cetera. Talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah. So as Pat said, more mandates are coming out for tracking or cookies, or accepting cookies or declining cookies, and not putting cookies on a site maybe before someone accepts. These things are becoming more and more common. These laws, people are becoming more and more aware of it, right? Because as we get more and more digital, people are starting to say, hey, we've been doing this for a while, but I want to make sure I'm not being tracked when I don't want to be tracked based on cookies. And you want to make sure your agency is up to date on this so they can make sure you have the proper structure on your site so that you are covered. And it's very complicated. It's also something you'll probably need to get a legal team involved with, because if you're selling products in certain states, right, like Wisconsin can be different than New York or California. So you need kind of a team to come together and make sure this is working. But your agency needs to be able to implement it and understand and deliver the information that there needs to be work done on this.
I've heard some cases, minor horror stories where they set up a good cookie policy, a content management, some of those tools. Then the ad agency came in, put a whole bunch more ads on, Google optimized some stuff, and they broke all those. All of a sudden, they're tracking the cookies again, unbeknownst to
the site. The site owner. Yeah.
Yep. And so what was good one month and passed an audit, all of a sudden it broke because ignorant practitioners and or employees innocently and ignorantly put the stuff on that violated the policies that they claimed to be there, which can get you into legal trouble. So we've heard a couple horror stories, some of our larger firms where that has happened. So it's important that we have an ongoing audit.
Correct.
Are you manually handling bid strategies? Why is that important?
Yeah, this is important because some people are kind of what we talked about before. They're scared if they use automated bid strategies that their job's going to get taken away from them because they're not sitting there on a daily basis tweaking the bid strategy. There's a time and place for that if you have very minimal budget, but generally 98% of the time, you probably want an automated bid strategy, and you want to know that your consult agency is utilizing your time to grow your account, to enhance your account, not sit there on a daily basis and say, hey, we bid $2 less yesterday, let's bid $175 today, right? That's how PPC was traditionally. I've been to conferences and there's still people who do this a lot for the reasons stated. And my kind of response to them was like, well, I'm going to probably destroy you if we're competitors, because I'll be working on big picture, driving and growing this account and taking more business while you're focused on dollar bills, right? From a bid strategy standpoint.
Yep. So AI can definitely help with that, and being able to trust it, knowing what's going on, and being able to put those policies in place.
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting thing to say, like AI can help with that. Like we've been using it, like this has been something in the paid ad space for a much longer time than it's been like front and center in society, that we've been utilizing tools to enhance what we're doing just because it was naturally built into it from Google and even Meta/Facebook, et cetera.
Yeah. I think there's a little bit of a delusion in society that LLMs and artificial intelligence arose 2 years ago with the rise of ChatGPT. And then in fact, this has been around for decades, ever evolving. A lot of it in the back rooms has been AI driven for probably decades. And we just never called it that. But part of its secret sauce was AI algorithms that have been ever evolving. So what we did with ChatGPT was let the rest of the world suddenly undo what was happening in the back rooms for years and years and years. All right. A few more other key moments inside of here. Adapting your SEO strategy for AI features. So we do know that on the top of Google results, the SERP, search engine results page on the top, Google often is now providing an AI answer. I think Bing is doing the same thing. I don't use Bing as much. So how do we adapt our SEO strategy for the SERP AI features?
Yeah, so there's kind of two different conversations here. They're all curated by AI, but Google especially is using a bunch of different new, what they're called SERP features that are just pulling in content directly from your site and hosting it on the search engine page. I'm sure anyone who's used a search engine has encountered one of these. They're like the people also ask function, or the, related topics or related content, or the things to know panel, or the AI overview is one of these as well. And so what we really want to do is make sure that we're following SEO best practices. This is Google's number one tip when asked, how do you appear in AI overviews and other SERP features, is just to follow SEO fundamentals. Produce high quality content, gets shared and referenced, and that is useful to users, and you're very likely to show up in AI features. I still find that it's useful, even though there's a lot of insistence that you don't necessarily need keyword phrases anymore. In my own experimentation with articles and other content that use the direct keyword phrase I'm targeting versus don't, the one that does use the phrase or the key topic that I'm focused on in the header and in metadata and in the article, wherever in key locations, does perform better. So it's not entirely a world where we don't have to do keyword research anymore. You still need to understand a topic that you're focused on, and sharpening the focus of your content can make you more likely to show up in AI features. What's different now is that we want to bloom out the focus of articles a little bit more to focus on other related topics that might be useful, to try and make sure we're hitting as many of those kind of broad, complicated queries that people may be typing in as we possibly can. Like, I know one of our clients started seeing a lot of search value, or a lot of search traffic from the query, like, can you summarize the components of a weight loss plan?
Yeah.
That was the query in Google that was showing up again and again and again. And so it's people searching for long, complicated queries now that are getting AI overview traffic. Basically, anytime you go over 7 words in a search term, which is happening more and more regularly,
more and more, that's
AI overview territory, almost guaranteed.
Yeah,
So,
it's an interesting behavior change among the users, and I think the whole world is adapting. And I found myself doing that too. I used to limit my Google queries to 3 words, 4 words max, just because we had learned over time that more than that helpful. It wasn't going to result in a better search. And now that has changed. And now I can type full sentences, sometimes very long sentences into Google, almost like a prompt, knowing full well that reasonably it's going to handle it. It's going to parse it and bring back a reasonable good answer.
Right. And that kind of frees up content creators to do something that's more focused on just, what do I either need my audience to know about my service or my topic, or what do I need to get out there to, like, what would be most useful to them at this point? And there's a high chance that there are unrelated queries that we can't anticipate that people are going to have, that if you just write a bit more organically than we may be used to, as opposed to specifically focus on, like, I got to hit this keyword this many times.
Yeah.
You focus on the topics you want to focus on, and then include some key phrases where there's value. Like, I think that shift in focus is actually going to be can be really good for the overall quality of content.
Yep.
It's just that if we embrace the full, like, AI regurgitation thing, that's where things get rough, and where content can suffer over time. But it can be really powerful to make your content better, the fact that this tool exists.
Yeah. I want to mention any of our viewers who have gotten this far into the video. Thank you very much. And that also, that if you do have questions, I know we've been covering a lot of topics. We've been dropping acronyms. Thank you, Ed. And we have been talking about some really advanced concepts. If any of this doesn't make sense, or you have some follow-up questions, etc., you can contact us right at the link over here, right up there, and be able to ask questions. We'd be happy to get back to you and engage further to explain some of these concepts. You're also welcome to download our white paper over here. Inside of the SERP, a little example we see on the screen over here, the fact is that there's a summary of results and there's a little tiny link. I know some of the LLMs provide more links more generously. Google at the moment is minimizing this link. Do you predict that they are going to get in trouble for this? and that will evolve. Give us a prognostication of, I think that's the wrong word, a prognostication of what the future is going to look like for these AI overviews. Any trends you think, or I'll let you go first, Ed.
Yeah, so this is interesting, and this goes into a topic of how busy, like you can see an example, how busy a SERP page is when you search something. And when you say trouble, I think you mean, are people going to find the websites, correct? Or do you mean Google itself?
Well, they link through to the website. Yeah. So we've gotten, like, if they're stealing content, I have found a little trick. I should say this out loud, but I've been able to have some firewalled content on some news sites that I don't have a subscription to. And I can take that headline, I can paste it into an LLM and say, summarize this article. And sure enough, it does. But, where did it get that information from? And I think the LLMs are going to get in trouble for that soon. If they haven't already, they're going to get sued.
Yeah, there'll be lawsuits, but if we want to go on a tangent on that, like if you kind of look at the SERP results and the SERP features, technically that's content that people created, Google's crawling and then putting on Google, and Google actually doesn't allow you to do that with your competitors, and that's what they're doing to you. And they haven't really got in trouble yet. So I agree with you. I think there's going to be lawsuits. I don't know if they'll actually end up anything coming from it.
Yeah. Well, that's a prediction in the future. So my prediction is that, yes, there are going to be lawsuits, and yes, they're going to have to modify this behavior, that they're going to have to say, here are the sources in, more loud than this little tiny link. I don't know if I can see it on my screen here, but that's the reference as to where did this come from. And that I think they're going to have to do a better job of attributing where this content came from, or if it's an amalgam of other stuff. But
correct. Yeah, and to circle back to people clicking the link, we've adapted like what's called zero-click marketing. Rand Fishkin talks about it a lot if you want to look up him. And what it is people are using these tools a lot for research, even Google, where they'll just read things on Google. But if you show up as one of these sources on, say, the AI overview or some of the other certain features, over time, they still tend to come back to your site. However, you might see a decline in actual organic search traffic coming to your site. That's like kind of a big phenomenon happening on right now. Impressions going up, clicks going down. Not every site, but a lot of sites are seeing this. But what you still measure is, are people coming back and converting over time? And if your conversions are actually going up, which fundamentally the point of SEO should be to get people to take action on your site, versus just creating a bunch of content to get as much traffic. You want good quality traffic. It's kind of a shift in how people use the internet. And there's still huge value in SEO because there's still a ton of traffic from it, but you want the conversions to come with it.
So the people are doing the research more on Google, on the LLMs.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, the funnel before, that sales funnel up in the beginning.
Correct.
And all people start out with some level of research, typically, and that eventually they got to buy it from someplace or connect with something. You can't buy a conveyor belt on Google. But you might do a whole lot of conveyor belt research in the LLM, learning about best practices. Yes. And at some point in time, you're going to get curious what vendors sell these features that seem to be important. And that's where you're going to come through. And that's the quality of the land. And a well-educated visitor to your website could be worth a lot. If they come in, they know what they're looking for, they can get to the finish line faster.
Yeah. And so that circles back to how important having strong data and Google Tag Manager setup is, because you can then measure, okay, we are getting conversion increases. We're seeing our search traffic go down, but we actually should be expecting that based on what's happening on Google or other LLMs. And the other way to tell is maybe your homepage traffic or your direct traffic is going up. That's one way to attribute it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're going to start in the future valuing, or I hope valuing anyway, it's a little bit more highly than we have in the past in search. Just because we're learning the user journey is so much bouncier than it used to be, as Ed was alluding to there, that just there's a lot of different paths that people are taking and a lot of different ways that people reach your site. But that visibility of your brand or your name in any of those touch points, there are studies that suggest that somebody has to, when they're searching online, encounter your brand 11 times before they finally engage with you in some cases. And so it's one more basically tally on that chart towards, I've seen this brand, I'm familiar with it, it's popped up a few times now. As I'm researching, that consideration might come back, and then people come back to your site later. So I think impressions are no longer from SEO in particular, driving impressions was fine, but we didn't really care if we were seen in search before. We wanted to be clicked on in search to drive traffic. Right. And I think that will shift over time as that search engine results page becomes more of a desirable place to be. And there's lots of different modalities where people can see you through that. And we just want as many people to see your site and have the opportunity to navigate as possible. So competing with a lot, but you want to be there in that competitive space.
Yeah.
So.
All right. John, I think our last topic, best practices in the thing. I'm going to let you guys, viewers can read this content over here on our white paper in the sake of time over here. To improve your marketing strategies, quick hit. Let's do a lightning round over here. Some of the best practices. Investing in continuous learning. I think we're stating the obvious here, but there's a lot to learn in how SERPs work, how the evolving world of GEO and SEO are working, even from fundamental best practices or what SEO are and how that's being changed. So certainly watching videos like you're watching today, listening to these sorts of things are a great way to continuously learn. Cross-platform strategies, quickly. Ed.
Yeah. So one of the things is we talked about search everywhere marketing. So you want to be optimizing for LLM, you want to be optimizing for Google, for Bing. And even if your audience is on other tools like Reddit, you might want to have a Reddit strategy as well. So you want to make sure you're on different platforms. Maybe it's Meta, maybe it's LinkedIn, whatever it is. You want to be there and get in front of people.
Be where the action is. And the action is all over the place right now. So you got to be everywhere. Monitor algorithm changes. Alex.
Yeah, stay up to date on the way that Google is shifting. That's something that you can do. They offer regular update data and kind of give at least a high-level broad synopsis of what they've changed and where the priorities are for an algorithm update. There's usually like 4 major updates a year, and then there's minor ones all the time. So just got to keep an eye on that and make sure that you stay on top of it.
Preserving the human insight, lots of different ways inside of here, but the one that strikes me on this topic is when you let the LLM write generic content and you don't edit it, you're lacking the empathy, the insight, and the creativity. Often the human touch. One of the things, a good tell in LLM-generated content is that it lacks a human touch. It lacks personalized examples. I can give an example of how I was surfing, searching for a new washing machine. The LLM's not going to come up with that, but I can give a personal example of my search online and how that made a difference. Focus on quality content. I think we've hit that over and over and over again today. I think that's an underlying theme that the quality matters. If you're going to generate the content, you got to then you have to tune it, adding schema and making sure that it's being tracked and tagged, etc. Establish AI governance. Ed.
Yeah, you want to make sure you're using AI for things you should be using AI for. If you're writing very sensitive content, maybe you don't want to use AI at all in that scenario, right? You might want to have a policy on that where something that's not sensitive, it's all right to use it a bit more in that scenario. So you want to make sure what you're doing with it is very ethical and you're not just letting it kind of run its course, because you want to make sure it's going in the right direction as well, right? Making sure you're guiding it, making sure there's a human in the loop. If you have some processes that aren't even content, let's say other processes, you want to make sure someone's there making sure it's running properly.
Yeah, the AI governance, adding to that, kind of slightly off topic, but the fact that in the future, coming soon to your organization, there will be the opportunities for the AI to get in and spider and crawl your corporate content. The LLMs and the chatbots are not typically doing that for 99% of the people at the moment. The really advanced companies are doing this, but most people are not. And that's where AI governance, what are they getting to see? How's it get firewalled? What are they going to do with it? Are going to be important considerations. Experiment systematically. I think we've hit on that a number of times and encourage you, fail often and take notes, reflect on what went right, what went wrong. And if it didn't work this week, whatever you're trying, try it again in 2 weeks. This is evolving very, very quickly. And finally, Alex, last word, track emerging trends.
Yeah, obviously this space is changing like crazy. And I think a lot of people are still learning, trying to keep up with it, but we're starting to get a grip around what these things actually mean and what they can do, at least now. That said, our capabilities could leap forward and all of a sudden we have to catch up. But that's something that's kind of the name of the game in digital marketing anyway. So I don't think anyone in the industry is unused to, trying to keep up with technology change. That's kind of the name of the game.
We have been in this space for a long time. It is moving fast and accelerating. All right. I'm going to let our viewers read the final thoughts by downloading the white paper and staying in touch. And again, if you have any questions, follow-ups, want some clarity and further discussion on any of the topics we covered today, you're all welcome. But anyways, thank you for coming to our campfire today and hope to see you again.